Here are my lessons learned from working 50 years and having 25 or more jobs. It's crazy. I went and I made a list of all the jobs that I've had since I was about 10 years old. I'm 62 now. So, what do you think my first job was? What do you think my last job was or is? So, if you want to take a guess, put it in the comments. And if you want to wait till the very end, I will say what my last job is slash was. Actually, I'm still doing it. But anyway, so here we go. So if you haven't put that in the comments, I'm going to tell you right now, anyways. My first job, and I'm going to tell you the different jobs that I've had over my life and the lessons learned, and they are many. And so I started working at a very early age, very young. And why? Because I had to. I'm 62, and man, once I learned that I could work and make some money, I started. And why? Because nobody was going to get it for me. My parents were broke and my home life was crap. And I just know that I had to generate some money if I wanted to buy a bike or a skateboard or stuff. But here we go. My first job was a paper boy. Some of you guys may have already guessed that. But what in the world is a paper boy? Well, let me tell you. This is way back. Now I'm talking like 1973-ish. Yeah, 73. So there was a guy that drove by our neighborhood, and he this kind of sounds weird and kind of weird for today's time, but the guy drove by, he rolled down his window and he said, "Hey kid, do you want to make some money?" And I'm going, "Okay." He goes, "Do you want to be a paper boy?" And I said, "Okay, what is that?" And he says, "Well, what would happen is I'll bring you a stack of papers. I'll give you a list of houses that you need to deliver. And then you will have to collect money for what people owe. And then you can keep the rest. And plus, you'll probably get some tips." So I said, "Okay." And then, of course, I talked to my parents. And then the man talked to my mom and dad. And so that's how it started. But this is what would happen. So I remember, and this is kind of reality, that this was going to go down. I came home from school, elementary school, and when I came home to my house, we had a carport. This is down in Miami, Florida, and in the carport was a stack of papers that had a twine, wrapped up, and there were about 50 newspapers. And I think this was the Miami News. It wasn't the Herald. It was the Miami News. And so there also was a stack or a thing of plastic wrap where you had to fold the paper together, put it in the plastic bag, and then I had this big canvas bag that I stuffed all the papers in. I put the strap around my shoulder. I got on my bike, and I got my list, and off I went. And I would throw it into the yard, or there were some apartments nearby. I would have to ride my bike into the apartments and drop it at the door. Some of them were upstairs, but a paper boy, unlike anything that you see now. I don't even know if they're still throwing papers. I think the people are. I think they're still delivering Sunday papers where they throw it out to the curb. But anyways, what did I learn? I learned about commitment. I learned about follow through. I learned that those papers showed up rain or shine, which meant I had to deliver rain or shine. So I remember coming home from school and it's pouring. This is in Miami, Florida, and it's hot. And those afternoon showers, 2 or 3 o'clock, were coming down. And so I had to wait for those thunderstorms to stop, and I'd get out there and I'd have to go throw those papers. So it was the reality was it was real. So, and of course, in Miami, it eventually got cold, but maybe a month or two. And so I survived that. But the worst part was the heat. So the hardest part about that job was going and collecting money. So I had, I don't know, let's say about 50 houses. And it was in my neighborhood. So it wasn't that far. So now I had to go up to each house, knock on the door, and I'd say, "Yes, I'm collecting money for the paper." And so they owed me whatever amount of money, and then sometimes they would give me extra as a tip. Um, and then once I collected the money, the paper guy would come and he would pick up the money that I collected. And then sometimes it was hard to get money. People either weren't home or they would say, come back tomorrow or next week and I'll give you some money. That was the hard part, trying to get the money from the people. So I do remember I do have a very good memory, and so I had an uncle. He passed away, but my uncle used to live next door to me, and my uncle drove a 1970 something Cadillac. It was big, it was green, and it was a convertible. He had a white top, and I say, Uncle Bill, can you take me in your car and put the top down and I could sit up on the back? And so one day he did that. So I packed all my papers in my bag, put it in the back seat, and we had the radio on, and I was telling him where to go. And I was sitting up on the back of the seat and I was throwing the papers into the yards, and it was phenomenal. I had a great time. My uncle Bill was an old hippie, and he's probably playing all kinds of crazy rock and roll back in the '70s. But that was monumental to do that. And then when we got to the apartment complex, I would grab what papers I needed. I would run in, drop, 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 get back in the car, go around, and do that. And that was amazing. So that was a little challenging, and I don't remember how long I did it. I don't know, 6 months to a year, but I learned a lot, and I had to follow through. It was a big time commitment. I had another job, which I don't know, it was just a fun job. I remember in Miami it was crazy, crazy hot, and we would wash cars. Me and my sisters, we would go and across the street or right on our street, and we get a bucket, some rags, and some soap. And we all would get out there and wash the car, rinse it off. We got all soaking wet. We would climb up on the roof, and then slide down the back, and our neighbors would give us, I don't know, $5 maybe, and we did a couple of those, but they would come over and ask us, and so that was fun. I remember doing that, and what did I learn from that? That I could do some work for the neighbors and start to make money, which led to the next one, mowing lawns. Oh my gosh, that was brutal, brutal, brutal. Because in Miami, they had real grass, like St. Augustine grass. And here I'm in Central Florida, you have to pay for that grass. And then in Miami, it was all standard. All the lawns had St. Augustine, and that was super thick, super heavy, and super hard to mow. Here in Central Florida, it's all grazing. It's all Bahia grass, and it's all weeds and thin, and nothing like that St. Augustine. But down in Miami, I remember I had a push mower. It wasn't self-propelled, and it was brutal. It took all I had to push this mower, and then we had to rake it. And I think we would bag it. We had an old metal rake. We'd put it in the bag and we set it out on the curb. But I think we got about $10 for each lawn um, that we mowed, and I didn't edge. I don't think I was really old enough or didn't really want to use an edger. It was a little intimidating. And my dad had an edger. We had the kind of old fashioned three wheels with a lever that you pull in and you push the blades go down, and then and they were very, very good. Some of the best edgers you could find. And my dad would edge our place. I don't think I ever edged, but I would mow and in the neighborhood, and that was tough. So again, I what did I learn? Commitment, hard work, sweating it out. I liked making money, but it was work. It was hard work. Um, Another little hustle that we did was babysitting. Um, I had an older sister, and she babysat. And when I was in junior high, we had a weird schedule. Um, the younger kids, like seventh grade, we wouldn't go to school till noon till 5. The older kids would go from 7 to noon. It was kind of weird, but so I would be off in the mornings, and I had a couple of neighbors that would ask me to watch their little ones. And so I would go to their house and just watch them. And I'd sit in front of the TV and watch The Price is Right. But there, I remember, I think I made maybe $3 an hour, and I would work maybe 3 hours because I had to go to school and I had to ride my bike to school. But that was another way to make money. And so, what did I learn from that? Responsibility and being available, taking care of the kids, being responsible, and and being committed to the point to where they would ask you to come back, or there was another neighbor that would have me come over and watch their kid. So I was a little hustler. um, and later in my um, later as I got older, I did some more landscaping, and which also led into a um, a um, a landscaping job where we did sprinkler installations and sprinkler repair. And in that situation, I would do that in the summer. So as I got older and into high school, I worked for a guy that had 50 lawns. He had houses, he had um, trailer park, but he would also go to people's houses and install irrigation systems. And so I was the trim guy. He was on a riding mower, and I would go and do trim around the trees and around the trailers. And also, I'd have to dig ditches to lay the pipe down. He taught me how to connect the pipe, how to clean it, how to clean it, and then put the glue on it, and then lay it, and then bury it. So what did I learn there? I learned a skill. I learned how to glue, how to attach sprinklers, how to adjust. I'd also started making more money. And during the summer, he would, everybody was paying cash. I think I made maybe $5 an hour. And for a summer job, oh my gosh, that was phenomenal. And I was uh, you know, making money as a little kid. But anyways, what was your first job? What was your hardest job at 10, 15 years old? I don't know. Put it in the comments. And if you like what you're hearing, give me a subscribe, give me a like, put in a comment. And you know what? I still have a lot more to go. So this is part one. You're going to have to go to part two. God bless.